The box of ornaments is a time capsule, and the air in the living room is thick with the ghosts of Christmases past. I lift each one with a reverence that feels both sacred and sorrowful. Here is the little felt reindeer Marcus made in kindergarten, its googly eye hanging by a thread. Here is the clumsy clay angel, glazed a shocking pink, a testament to Chloe's early, eager attempts to join our family traditions. I hang them with careful hands, my fingers tracing the memories embedded in each chipped piece of paint and bent wire. The tree, a majestic Fraser fir, stands sentinel in the corner, its piney scent supposed to be a balm, but tonight it smells only of absence. This ritual has always been mine. Robert, God rest his soul, would have been perfectly content with a single string of lights, if that. But I have always believed in the ceremony of it, in the unwrapping of each memory, in the deliberate placement of every bauble. It is a conversation with the year that has passed, a way to honor the joy and endure the sorrow. This year, however, the conversation is a monologue, and a bleak one at that. The silence in the house is a physical presence, broken only by the soft rustle of tissue paper and the distant, cheerful jingle of a commercial on the television I have muted. I am 68 years old, and I have never felt the weight of that number more than in this room, surrounded by the glittering evidence of a life lived. The holidays have a way of sharpening the edges of loneliness, of magnifying every empty chair. Marcus and Chloe are always so busy. That is the word they use, a shield against any implied guilt. We are just so busy, Mom. It is a reasonable, modern excuse. He runs his firm, she is climbing the ladder at the gallery. Their lives are a whirlwind of important meetings and social obligations that I can scarcely imagine. I tell myself I understand. I was young once. But understanding does not fill the quiet. It does not explain why the word busy feels like a synonym for gone. I reach for the final ornament, the one I have been saving and dreading. It is a delicate glass heart, a gift from Robert on our last Christmas together. He said it was because my own heart was the strongest thing he had ever known. I hold it up to the light from the tree, and it throws 1,000 tiny specks of crimson across the walls, like scattered drops of wine. My own heart feels anything but strong tonight. It feels fragile, this old muscle, tired from the constant, low-grade ache of missing him, of missing them. As if summoned by my thoughts, my phone vibrates on the coffee table, a harsh buzz that cuts through the stillness. A flutter of hope, immediately chastised. It will be them, saying they are on their way, that they are sorry, that traffic was terrible. I set the glass heart down carefully and pick up the phone. The screen glows with Chloe's name. I tap the message open. Running later than expected. Marcus is finishing up at the office. We'll text when we are heading your way. I read it once, then again. The hope curdles into something colder, a leaden disappointment that settles in my stomach. It is not the message itself, it is the phrasing. It is always the phrasing with Chloe. I scroll back through our previous texts, a habit I hate in myself but cannot break. Marcus and I are running late. We will be there soon. But this is different. Your husband is finishing up at the office. The words stare back at me, devoid of warmth. Your husband, not Marcus. Not my husband. It is a deliberate separation, a cold, grammatical jab. It draws a line. He is mine, it seems to say, and his lateness is my burden, not ours. It is a small thing, perhaps. To anyone else, it would be nothing. But a mother learns to read the silences between her children's words, and a mother-in-law learns to decode every syllable from a daughter-in-law who has never quite let her in. This feels different. This feels like a door being closed and the lock clicking into place. I do not respond. What would I say? That is quite all right, take your time. The falseness of it would choke me. Instead, I return to the tree, but the ritual is now broken. The lights seem too bright, the tinsel garish. The silent tinsel mocks me. I move through the room, straightening a cushion that does not need straightening, wiping a non-existent speck of dust from the mantelpiece. The clock on the wall ticks its slow, steady rhythm. 9 o'clock becomes 10. 10 becomes 11. The worry begins to mutate, shifting from a familiar annoyance into a low, thrumming anxiety. They are not this late. Even at their busiest, they have never been this late for Christmas Eve. A text takes 10 seconds. A call 30. The silence from their end becomes a roar in my ears. I try Marcus's phone. It goes straight to voicemail, his professional, clipped tone informing me he is unavailable. I try Chloe's. It rings and rings, a lonely, electronic pulse into the void, before also cutting to her message. This is not like them. This is not like him. Marcus, for all his absorption in his work, has always been meticulous about these things. He would know I would be waiting. He would know I would worry. A cold knot tightens in my chest, something deeper than rational thought. It is a primal feeling, a vibration in the spirit, the same instinct that once told me when he had fallen and scraped his knee as a boy, even when I was in another room. The house feels different. The festive lights now cast long, distorted shadows that seem to creep across the floorboards. The cheerful Christmas tree looks like a gaudy intruder. I find myself standing at the large front window, peering through the glass into the quiet, dark street. The houses opposite are dark, their families tucked inside, living their Christmas Eve lives. No cars pass. The world is holding its breath. And then I see it. A flicker of movement at the end of the street, near the old oak tree. A shape, dark and indistinct, detaching itself from the deeper shadows. It is too tall to be an animal, too purposeful in its stillness. It is just a figure, standing there, looking toward my house. My breath fogs the cold glass. I blink, and the figure is gone. Perhaps it was a trick of the light, a shift of the branches in the wind, but the wind is not blowing. I step back from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The fear is no longer a nagging thought. It is a certainty, cold and sharp, settling deep into my bones. This night is different. Something is wrong. The silence is no longer just empty, it is waiting. And I am alone in the middle of it, with only the glittering, silent tinsel for company. The steering wheel was cold beneath my hands, a stark contrast to the feverish heat prickling at the back of my neck. Each rotation of the tires on the wet asphalt was a hammer blow against the fragile story I was trying to tell myself. He is just running late. The traffic is bad. His phone died. The litany of excuses had played on a loop from the moment I left the restaurant, a desperate mantra against the rising tide of panic. But the excuses had begun to curdle, turning into something sour and suspicious in the pit of my stomach. The turn onto our street was a familiar motion, an action performed 1,000 times, but tonight it felt alien, like steering a ship into a fogbank where I knew a reef lay hidden. Our house, the one Marcus and I had painted a cheerful butter yellow just last spring, should have been a beacon. It was not. It was a dark, silent monolith against the bruised purple of the evening sky. Not a single light glowed from the living room window, nor from our bedroom upstairs. The driveway, where my car was now idling, was empty. The engine coughed into silence, and the sudden quiet was deafening. I sat there, gripping the wheel, my breath fogging the windshield. The empty house was not just empty, it was a confirmation. It was a physical manifestation of the void that had opened up inside me at the restaurant. The running late story was a lie. A flimsy, transparent lie that I had clung to for a few desperate miles. Now, with the evidence of the dark windows and the vacant driveway, that lie unwrapped itself completely, revealing the rotten truth beneath. My deepest suspicion, the one I had refused to name, was correct. Something was very wrong. I do not know how long I sat there, long enough for the interior of the car to grow as cold as the dread in my heart. My mind, frantic, scrambled for an anchor, any clue it could grasp, and it landed with a terrifying, inevitable clarity on Alina. His sister. If Marcus was in some kind of trouble, if he had some secret life, would there not be a trace of it there, in the life of the person he had loved most? It was a long shot, a thread so thin it was nearly invisible, but it was the only one I had. I had not spoken to David, Alina's husband, in years, not since the funeral. I had sent a card at Christmas, a donation in her name, but I had always kept a respectful distance, believing my presence would be a painful reminder of all he had lost. Tonight, propriety did not matter. Only Marcus mattered. David's house was on the other side of town, a modest ranch-style home that had always been filled with the smell of baking and the sound of Alina's laughter. Now, as I pulled up, it looked just as still and quiet as my own, but a soft light glowed from the living room window, a sign of life. I cut the engine, my hands trembling. This was a violation of an unspoken agreement, the careful boundary I had maintained for a decade. I was about to drag up old ghosts for my own selfish, terrified reasons. The walk to the front door felt like a mile. The porch light flickered on before I could knock, and the door swung open to reveal David. He looked older, much older than the years should have allowed. His kind eyes were set deeper in a web of wrinkles, and his shoulders were stooped. He held a book in one hand, his finger marking his place. He did not look surprised to see me. He looked resigned, as if he had been expecting this visit for a very long time. Grace, he said, his voice a soft rasp. I thought it might be you. Come in, please, it is cold. I stepped into the hallway, the warmth of the house feeling oppressive. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and loneliness. David, I am so sorry to bother you. I cannot find Marcus. The words tumbled out, raw and unvarnished. He nodded slowly, gesturing for me to follow him into the living room. The room was neat, too neat, a museum of a life that had moved on. A single lamp illuminated a worn armchair and a small side table with a photograph of Alina, her smile forever bright. Sit down, Grace, he said. Can I get you some tea? No, thank you. I perched on the edge of the sofa, my body tense. David, have you heard from him? Tonight or recently? I know it is a strange question. He settled into his armchair, the leather sighing under his weight. He looked at me with an expression of profound sadness, a look that was not just for his own loss, but for mine, still to come. I have not heard from him tonight, no, he said, but I have heard from him, regularly. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Regularly? What do you mean? David sighed, a heavy, weary sound. For years now, Grace, ever since Alina, ever since she passed, Marcus has been coming by. He helps me with things. The gutters, the taxes, things I never had to think about before. He paused, choosing his words with care. And he helps me financially. A monthly check, he insisted. He said it was what Alina would have wanted. The world narrowed to a pinprick. Marcus, here, for years, writing checks, having conversations I knew nothing about, a secret connection to the sister he still grieved, a connection he had kept hidden from me. Why? The word was a whisper. Why would he keep that from me? David looked down at his hands, weathered and age-spotted. He said you would not understand. He said you had a difficult time with all the memories. He told me he did not want to cause you more pain. He looked up, and his eyes were sharp, clear. But I think that is only part of it. I think he needed this connection to her. It was his way of keeping her close. A secret grief he felt he could not share with you. A secret grief. The phrase echoed in my head, and suddenly another secret, a much larger, more terrible one, began to stir from its long slumber. It was a door in my mind I had locked and bolted shut 25 years ago, the lie I had built our entire life upon. If Marcus was capable of keeping this from me for a decade, what else was he capable of? The two secrets, his and mine, began to circle each other in the dark corners of my mind. David, I said, my voice trembling with a new, more terrifying fear. Where is he tonight? Did he say anything about a work event, a conference? David shook his head, a faint, pitying look in his eyes. No, Grace, he did not mention any work event. He told me he was going to see his father. The air left my lungs in a rush. The room swam. I heard a high-pitched ringing in my ears. It was not possible. It was the most impossible thing in the world. His father is dead, I whispered, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. I told him his father died before he was born. David's gaze was unwavering, filled with a terrible knowledge. I know what you told him, Grace, but the man is not dead. Marcus found him. He started searching a few years after Alina died. I think losing her made him need to find the other part of his family. He told me about it once when he first made contact. He said he could not tell you. He said you had your reasons for the story you told, but he had to know for himself. The foundational lie, the bedrock upon which I had built Grace, and Mother and our entire safe, carefully constructed world, shattered. It did not crack. It exploded into a million jagged pieces. The secret I had kept to protect him, to shield him from the truth of the man who was his father, had not protected him at all. It had only sent him searching in the dark, and he had found the very thing I had sworn he would never have to face. He was not at a work event. He was with the ghost I had created, the man I had willed into non-existence. I do not remember standing up. I do not remember walking to the door. I only remember the feel of the cold night air on my face as I stumbled out of David's house, the weight of my own deception crushing me. I had wrapped my son in a lie to keep him safe, and that lie had festered, and now it had driven him straight into the arms of the danger I had tried to erase. I stood on the sidewalk, gasping, the truth washing over me in nauseating waves. And the most terrifying question of all rose in my mind, a question I was too afraid to even fully form. What had his father told him about me? The first hint of dawn was a thief, stealing the deep velvet of the night and replacing it with a cold, gray light that felt like a judgment. I stood on the porch, the winter air biting through my jacket, watching my breath plume into ghosts. The street was empty, the houses silent. It was a world holding its breath. I had not slept. The Christmas tree in the window behind me was a cruel joke, its cheerful lights unplugged, leaving it a dark, skeletal shape against the glass. I had spent the night tracing the path of those lights, remembering the hope I had felt stringing them up, a hope that now felt naive and shattered. I saw his car before I heard it, a slow-moving shadow at the end of the street. My heart did not pound with the anger I had expected. Instead, a heavy, cold stone settled in my stomach. This was it, the reckoning. The car pulled into the driveway, the engine cutting out with a finality that echoed in the quiet morning. The door opened, and Marcus unfolded himself from the driver's seat. He looked like I felt, exhausted, hollowed out. He did not rush to the door. He simply stood by his car, his keys in his hand. His shoulders slumped, as if gathering the courage for a walk to the gallows. I opened the front door before he could knock. The sight of him standing there, my boy, now a man carrying a burden I had helped create, was a physical pain. He looked up, and his eyes were red-rimmed, shadowed with a sleeplessness that mirrored my own. But it was the expression on his face that undid me. I had prepared for his fury, for the hot, righteous anger of betrayal. I saw none of it. What I saw was a profound, weary sadness that seemed to have aged him 10 years in a single night. "Mom," he said, and his voice was rough, scraped raw. "Come inside, Marcus," I said, my own voice surprisingly steady. "It is freezing." He walked past me into the living room. He did not take off his jacket. He stood staring at the dark Christmas tree, his back to me. The silence in the room was thick and heavy, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I could feel the ghost of last night's confrontation hanging between us, a poisonous cloud. "I thought you would be angrier," I said finally, the words sounding foolish and small. He turned to face me then, and the sadness in his eyes was so deep I felt I could drown in it. "I do not have any anger left, Mom. I think I used it all up on him. Last night, after I left here, I drove to his house. I do not even know why, I just needed to see it. To see the place where my father has been living all this time, a 20-minute drive away, while I thought he was a ghost." My breath caught in my throat. "What did you do?" "I did not go in, I just sat in my car across the street. The lights were on. I could see a shadow moving behind the blinds. My father, a living, breathing man, watering a plant on his windowsill." He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. It was so normal, so devastatingly normal. And I just sat there and realized that the anger I felt, it was not just for his lies. It was for yours, too. But the anger for you, it is different. It is heavier. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling more exposed than if I were naked. "I know." "Why, Mom?" he asked, and the question was not a shout but a plea, a desperate search for an answer that could somehow make sense of the last 24 years. "Why did you do it? Was it just to punish him? Was it to keep me for yourself? I need to understand. I feel like my entire life has been a story I was told, and now I have found out the last chapter was missing." I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my nightmares, but no rehearsal could prepare me for the crushing weight of the truth. "It was not that simple, Marcus. It never is." "Then make it simple for me," he said, his voice cracking. "Please." I looked at my son, really looked at him. I saw the little boy who used to build forts with couch cushions, the teenager who slammed doors, the young man who had just proposed to the love of his life. And I knew I owed him more than the carefully curated excuses I had told myself for decades. After the divorce, it was ugly. Bitter. Your father, he was not the man I married. The failure of the business changed him. He became withdrawn, cynical. He said terrible things. He said he felt trapped. By a family. He said he needed a clean break, to start over. Marcus flinched as if I had struck him. He said he did not want me. "No," I said quickly, though it was a partial lie. He had never said the words, but the implication had been clear. He said he could not be the father he needed to be. He said it would be better for everyone if he just disappeared. And Marcus, I was so angry. And I was hurt. And I was terrified of being a single mother, of failing you. So when he offered to sign over full custody, to just vanish, a part of me, a very ugly, wounded part of me, agreed. I told myself it was for the best. That a clean cut was better than a lifetime of him disappointing you, of you waiting for a father who did not know how to be present. The confession hung in the air, ugly and raw. I had never spoken these words aloud to anyone, not even to myself in the quietest hours of the night. Marcus was silent for a long time, processing. So you let me believe he abandoned me, that he did not care. You let me build a life on that foundation. Yes, I whispered. There was no defense. And all this time, reconnecting with him, it was Chloe's idea, was it not? I looked at him, surprised. How did you know? A faint, pained smile touched his lips. Because it sounds like her. She is always pushing me to mend fences. She has been after me for months to try to find him. She said a father is a hole that cannot be filled by anything else. I resisted for so long. I told her it was pointless, but the need, it grew. It became this ache. And she kept encouraging me, gently, persistently. She believed there could be a different story. I felt a strange, sharp pang of gratitude toward Chloe, mixed with a fresh wave of shame. This woman, who was not even officially part of our family yet, had seen a wound in my son that I had been content to let fester. She had pushed him toward a truth I had tried to bury forever. She was right, Marcus said softly. There was a different story. It is just uglier and more complicated than I ever imagined. He walked to the sofa and sank into it, the fight gone out of him. He told me his side, last night on the phone. He said he tried, Mom. He said he sent letters. For years. He said he called on my birthdays until the number was disconnected. The room tilted. That is not true, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I remembered a handful of letters early on. I had sent them back unopened. I had changed our phone number. I had built a wall, and I had told myself it was a fortress to protect my son. Is it not? Marcus asked, and he looked at me with an expression that was not accusatory, but profoundly disappointed. It was 1,000 times worse than anger. Or did you just stop seeing them? Did you build a world where he could not exist, and then you convinced yourself that world was the only one that was real? I had no answer. He was right. I had done exactly that. The emotional fallout was not an explosion. It was a slow, chilling collapse. The mother he had known, the unwavering pillar of his life, was revealed to be flawed, fearful, and capable of a great and lasting deception. And the son I had known, the boy whose world I could control and curate, was gone, replaced by a man who had been forced to grapple with a manipulated past. We were standing in the ruins of the bond we had known, and we would have to rebuild it from the foundation, with truth as our only, unstable building material. I do not know if I can forgive you for this, he said, his voice barely audible. I want to, but I do not know how. The trust, it is broken. I know, I said again, the words a mantra of my shame. I do not expect you to forgive me today or tomorrow. I need you to know that I am sorry. I am so truly sorry, Marcus, for all of it. He looked at me, and for the first time that morning, I saw a flicker of something other than devastation in his eyes. It was resolve. I cannot just go back to how things were, he said. We cannot pretend this did not happen. I do not want to pretend, I said. I am tired of pretending. He nodded slowly. Then we start from here, from this mess. We face it together. It was not a happy ending. It was not even a reconciliation. It was a ceasefire. A fragile, painful agreement to stop fighting the past and start facing the complicated, difficult truth of the present. We were choosing a new beginning, knowing it would be harder than the lie we had lived. Marcus stood up. I need to go, I need to process, and I need to see Chloe. Of course, I said, my heart aching with a mixture of relief and a new, profound loneliness. He walked to the door and paused, his hand on the knob. He looked back at the Christmas tree, then at me. It is a strange symbol, is it not? He said. It is supposed to represent joy and family. Now it just represents the day everything broke. Or the day we started to put it back together, I offered, the hope in my voice feeling fragile and thin. He did not answer. He simply opened the door and stepped out into the dawn. I watched him go, walking to his car without looking back. As his taillights disappeared down the street, I turned and looked at the tree. In the gray morning light, it was neither cheerful nor sinister. It was just a tree. A thing that was here, in this room, a silent witness to the fracture and to the fragile hope for a more honest future. The journey toward forgiveness would be longer than this single sunrise, and the road ahead felt impossibly long and dark. I was alone with the truth now, and the chilling realization that my son's forgiveness was a country I might never be allowed to enter.